Creating a histogram on the calculator isn't that difficult, but creating one that makes sense is a little bit more challenging. For this example, we're going to use a selection of 40 zinc intake measurements. Stat Edit allows you to enter the data, and I've already typed them in. The next thing you want to do is make sure that equations don't interfere with what you're working on. When I press y equals, I see that 2x plus 3 is in an equation, but since the equal sign is not highlighted, that equation will not be graphed. You can turn the highlighting on and off by using the arrow key to get on top of the equal sign and pressing enter. If the equation equal sign is highlighted, you get a graph. We don't want it on, so enter. Set up your histogram by pressing second y equals, which gets you into stat plot. Currently all the plots are off. We're going to use choice 1 for plot 1. Press enter. Turn it on by pressing enter. Use the arrows to get down to the histogram icon, which is the third one under type. For XList, I missed it. Don't forget to press enter. Under XList, our data was entered in L1, and for frequency we want 1. You can see a preview of what we're going to look at. I need a better window, so if I press zoom and then go up to choice 9, which is zoom stat, the calculator automatically picks a window for us. Now we get a histogram and the shape appears to be right skewed, but by pressing window we can see that the scale and the mins and the max for each bar don't make much sense. When I press graph and if I press trace, the first bar goes from 4.8 up to 7.21666, and that really isn't very helpful. So after you use zoom 9 to set your initial window, press the window button and pick a better scale. Since intake values look like they could be all the way down to very small numbers, I'm going to start at 0, and since the maximum is a little bit more than 21, I'm going to go up to 25. That allows me to pick an X scale of 5. And my Y min and my Y max look okay. I'm going to make my Y max a little bit bigger and go up to maybe 25 as well. When I press graph, I get a new picture, and pressing trace now tells me that the first bar represents zinc intake values of between 0 and less than 5, not quite including 5. The second bar gives me 5 all the way up to just less than 10. 4 bars isn't really enough to see the complete shape, so I'm going to go back into window. I'm going to change my X scale to 3 to get a little bit more detail. And I also notice that my Y scale is 1, which means that every single point is represented on the Y axis, which is too many. If I go from, let's say, -5 up to 25, a tick mark every 5 seems to make a little bit more sense. Now when I press graph, I have a much better histogram. Now when I trace, there are no measurements between 0 and 3. There are 2 measurements between 3 and 6. There are 11 measurements between 6 and 9, etc. So if you need to answer questions, for example, the proportion of zinc intake measurements that are less than 12, I'm going to go to the bar that stays, has a maximum of 12, and record that there are 16 plus 11 plus 2. If I need to answer a question like how many zinc intake measurements were between 6 and 15, I'm going to count the measurements in the second bar, third bar, and fourth bar. So that's it. Pressing graph removes the labels down here, and I'm back to a histogram. The important part is then to copy this onto a sheet of paper and label the x-axis, the y-axis, and your overall graph so that anybody reading it has a clear understanding of the distribution.